Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Community Climate Hub Fall webinar series. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to Community Climate Hub Initiative. My name is Matthew Chapman, Campaign Coordinator with Climate Reality Canada. And through several trainings each year, including Denver and Seattle earlier this year, and we were just in Pittsburgh last week, Climate Reality trains leaders to share the urgency and solutions to climate change. We're also helping create community climate hubs throughout the country that will help raise the bar on climate action in Canadian cities while supporting and spurring ambition at the provincial and federal levels. This webinar is part of our fall series, which you can see listed on your screen. You can sign up for the upcoming webinars at climatehub.ca as of Monday. This is the kind of second edition of the fall series. Andrew is finishing off the first edition with us today. These webinars are meant to exchange best practices and tools that you can leverage in your own cities to accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy. Today's webinar features, as I mentioned, Andrew Duffield, Director of Sustainable Development at the City of Beaconsfield. Andrew is a civil engineer with a master's in environmental engineering on soil remediation. He worked as a municipal engineer at the City of Westmount and then as Director of Public Works at the town of Baie-d'Urfé. Since taking office as the Director of Public Works at the City of Beaconsfield in 2013, Mr. Duffield has been known for his involvement in the implementation of the waste reduction strategy, and among many other strategies, and most recently, developing various projects associated with the fight against climate change, as well as environmentally responsible development in his recent role. And you can tell us exactly when you transitioned into that role, Andrew. His recent role as the Director of Sustainable Development. So with that said, I will hand it over to Andrew, and he will take us through how Beaconsfield was able to reduce its waste immensely in such a short period under his direction.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm indeed now occupying the role of Director of Sustainable Development since around March. A new role, an important role for a smaller city. So today I'm talking to you about intelligent waste management, a participatory approach. Participatory approach being an important element in the success of this initiative. Give you an idea of Beaconsfield's
You're going to want to share your screen. You haven't shared it yet.
I haven't shared it yet, excuse me. Okay, hopefully people can see this now.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. All right, so intelligent waste management, a participatory approach. The context for the city of Beaconsfield, we're roughly 220,000 residents on the island of Montreal. An important feature, 94% are single family units. So it's quite a uniform population, at least in terms of the types of properties. That was an important feature, we think, in the success of how we rolled out this initiative. Challenges that we were faced with in 2013, high costs for waste management. We were paying as a function of the number of tons that were sent to landfill. The Quebec waste management policy also in 2015 aimed to recover 60% of organic material. Very few municipalities, at least in certainly on the island of Montreal, and for that matter in Quebec, have attained that as of yet. And on the horizon in 2020 is an outright ban on organic materials sent to landfill. In 2013, we were also the second highest generators of material sent to garbage on the island of Montreal. Our objectives in 2013 were to become one of the cities with the lowest rates of garbage generation, but increase services to equip our residents to achieve this goal, while of course optimizing our costs for waste management. We looked at what was being done in neighboring cities. All cities attempt this, information awareness education campaigns, but unfortunately they're ineffective if there's no consequence attached to it, either through a monetary lever or another constraint imposed. We also looked at providing a brown bin for the collection of organic matter, as many municipalities in Quebec have done and across the country. It is, however, quite expensive and was unsuitable for the large lots in Beaconsfield. The small brown bin would be nowhere near enough to address all the green residue produced by the lots in Beaconsfield. And lastly, we could reduce the frequency of the collections for garbage, specifically to encourage use of the other services available to residents, but it is still seen as a change imposed by the city and offers correspondingly less savings than one would expect by simple reduction in half the number of collections, going from one pickup per week to two pickups per week, 2 pickups per month, for instance. So how could we do better with a solution adapted to Beaconsfield? We looked at what was in our garbage, what was in the average garbage bin in Beaconsfield, and greater than half was organic matter that could be diverted from landfill either through backyard composting or via green residue pickup. Also crucial to the establishment of our strategy for reduction, only 8% of what was found in a garbage bin was organic matter, but of animal nature that could not be diverted through either a green residue pickup or backyard composting. So we decided to focus on where we could have the biggest bang for our buck. We developed a waste reduction strategy in concert with the Beaconsfield Environmental Advisory Committee, comprised largely of residents, and we consulted with our population. So we decided to provide and implement a fair incentive tariff, fair meaning a tariff based on your usage of the service, coupled with an automated collection where only the bin is collected, not bags next to it. The concept of an incentive was already in force for the consumption of water in Beaconsfield. People have been paying for years based on their water consumption. For every cubic meter or every liter of water consumed, people pay a tariff that covers the cost for delivery of water and treatment of the used water of the sewer, as well as all the investments in repairs and maintenance of our systems. So with this concept, we decided to show to our residents that an incentive tariff is something that's equitable based on usage of the services. We also decided to offer many, many more collection for green residue, given the high percentage in our garbage bin. It seems obvious to reinforce the means to recycle and reuse, but residents, in large part, weren't making use of all the other services available to them. Also, we wanted to further encourage backyard composting. While in 2013, almost 30% of our residents were doing backyard composting, many were still reticent to embark on that without further incentive. And last, we wanted residents to consider grass cycling, leaving their clippings on the grass, and leaf mulching, given that it's good for the grass and limits unnecessary export of this organic matter. We also looked at the seasonal fluctuation in the tonnage in brown bins, and specifically in the brown bins where you have both green residue and table scraps. There was very little tonnage that appeared in the brown bins during the winter months. So we looked at the possibility of not offering a collection during winter months, given that there was little benefit in terms of waste reduction and limiting what's sent to the landfill. We also wanted to ensure our residents were aware of all of the services available to them so that they would make use of those collection services before they would put the materials into the garbage bin. So by providing increased awareness of other services available to them at no added cost, coupled with a choice of the size of new garbage bin, new intelligent, smart garbage bin provided, we hope to achieve results by providing the constraint of picking up only the bin, coupled with an incentive tariff. We aim to see what results we could achieve. So what is the smart collection? Instead of providing a brown bin to all our residents, we provided a so-called smart bin for garbage collection, which was equipped with an RFID tag. These only cost 50 cents to attach. This tag enabled the city to know what bin was collected at what location with what volume in real time. And the system that's loaded onto each of the operator's trucks allows you to follow in real time the pickup, not only the pickup, but also allows the operator to identify if there's any issues or problems with the pickup per address. Even screen captures can be made to identify, for instance, extra garbage or the bin was knocked over. It's important to note that this is a completely automated collection where an arm collects the bin, similar to what had been enforced for recycling for many years. There's also a real-time report that's produced per address that allows us to intervene the same day of collection to provide better response to our residents. So we did test this by virtue of a pilot project initially, 250 residents. For each of the fractions within our garbage bin, we noted the participants who made an effort to make use of the other services once they had a better sense for their relative role, succeeded in producing in total 31% less garbage sent to landfill. But also crucial to our approach, the pilot project participants were asked to put out their bin only when deemed necessary, when it was mostly full. As a result, the bins were presented virtually 7 out of 10 times versus 9 out of 10 times for non-participants. These results were achieved without an incentive tariff. So based on these results, we felt that the pilot project provided enough justification to institute a citywide implementation. But prior to doing that, we had to consult with the population as a whole. So as all cities do, we encourage our residents to participate. But in the interest of getting as much participation as possible, we provided a message to shock people, which is indeed true. Every day in 2013, Beaconsfield residents did pollute more than 99.8% of Montrealers. So of the 20,000 people in Beaconsfield, per capita, they produced or sent to landfill more than 99.8% of Montrealers. Residents did turn out in great number to find out how is it possible that our green city should be such a poor performer. There was much discussion, and residents went away understanding better what the waste reduction strategy offered to them. So with the 2016, we had the opportunity to retender for our garbage collection as well as for collection of green residue, leaves, and bulky items. This table shows how things evolved. Specific for the garbage, it's up to the resident when they want to put out their bin. The service remains available 52 weeks per year, but it's up to the resident whether they decide to put out the bin or not. We'll see what the impact on their individual tariff is based on this option. As far as green residue is concerned, we greatly increased the number of collections compared to 2014, given that it was clear that green residue occupied a huge fraction of the average garbage bin. The leaf collection remained the same. However, we did offer a bulky item collection that was sent to a sorting center, specifically to allow for recovery of elements that could be reused, such as wood, metal, and plastic. This also served to work in concert with the robotic or automated collection, because the big items that cannot fit in the the new garbage, new smart bin, can be collected once per month from April to November. So this ensures sorting, but also ensures that these elements can be recycled. This table provides an overview of the garbage contract, where the cost to the city has both a fixed component specifically for garbage and a variable component. So not only do residents pay based on the number of times they put out their bin for collection, but the city pays the contractor based on the number of bins that they collect. So there's a fixed component to ensure their set costs are covered, and a variable component based on the number of bins that are picked up. It was important that this variable component be an important value in the quantity in the contract. As such, the variable component had to be a minimum of 40% of the overall cost for garbage collection. For the other collections, still within the overall contract, green residue, leaves, and bulky items were fixed per collection, irrespective of the tonnage put out for collection. As a result of this structure, as the bin presentation rate, so the number of times that people put out their bin for collection on a given Thursday, decreases over time, the overall cost for the contract would also decrease over time, given that the other elements are fixed and the garbage component has a variable element. Returning to the pilot product, the bin presentation rate was 68%, whereas in 2020, we're hopeful that we can attain a bin presentation rate of 55% as people do better and better sorting. 55% is virtually one every 2 weeks, which is comparable to a change in frequency imposed by some of our neighboring cities. Benefits of the contract are numerous. The costs for this new technology were incorporated and assumed by the contractor and not taken over by the city. Even if the tonnage of green residue increases, which we certainly anticipated at the time it would, given the much greater number of collections, the total cost of the contract would decrease annually because residents would be taking their green residue out of their bin, allowing them to put their bin less frequently at the curb. The variable cost also ensures that the efforts of the community, of the individual, are collectively and individually rewarded. We can distribute the efforts of the community via different means. The savings made possible by this new type of collection means that we can provide many more services curbside to residents so they can reduce what is sent to landfill without increasing the overall costs for all of our waste management services. It's also a flexible system that adapts to the level of individual participation. And the savings achieved via this improved performance are ultimately distributed to the residents based on their efforts to put less in their garbage bin. Here's an overview of the tariff for 2016, and that for 2017 is very similar. For all of the collections, be it organic, recycling, the garbage pickup in parks, the garbage collection at the curbs, varied based on the size of garbage bin selected by the resident, be it a small, standard, or hefty size. That also included 12 garbage bin pickups, which represents 1 per month. For every additional pickup over and above the 12 garbage bin pickups for 1 year, there was an additional cost per pickup, 40 cents, 80 cents, and $1.20. We were initially criticized because this incentive was not seen as anywhere near enough to bring about change. As we'll see later on, the fact that there was an additional cost did bring about significant change because residents saw this as a small change for them to make with appreciable savings for them. As a result of this structure, to give you an idea, for someone who chooses the small bin and puts it out once every 2 weeks, the cost is $156. Someone who picks the medium bin and puts it out once every 2 weeks only in the 4 colder months, and then every other week minus 3 weeks for absences, $177. And if someone who picks the biggest bin, it puts it out every single week minus 3 weeks for absences, it's $204. Compared to 2015, the fixed costs, irrespective of the usage of the service, is almost the same as that for the standard with a small change in habit. It was intentional to structure the tariff in this way so that it wasn't seen as being a major impact to people's daily or weekly habits. The system, from a technological level, allows a much better view of the collection services and allows us to intervene in a much shorter time. The green points indicate where a pickup on a given Thursday had taken place. By clicking on the green point, we can see numerous information such as the location, the size of the bin, when it was collected, and to whom the bin is attributed. It also provides the GPS location for the pickup. The red dots or the red pins indicate where the operator of the truck identified some issue, made some observation. It may mean that the bin wasn't picked up, or it may mean simply that there was some observation that they felt was worthy to note. And the gray pins indicate where bins are being provided to residents, but a collection didn't take place on that given day. An example of a report to follow any issues on a given day, this is produced in real time, allows you to identify any issues with the bin, as well as when that took place, its location, and important for us, allows us to have a picture to illustrate what the issue is. Here's some example of photos. In the first one, indicates where elements next to the bin were not picked up. It is, once again, an automated collection where things outside of the bin cannot be picked up, but this was important, certainly when the new service was deployed and started 2016. There was many residents that didn't fully grasp this, but it allowed us to communicate with them directly to reinforce the proper understanding of the new system. Also, if a bin is located behind another bin, clearly we can't pick up that bin, so that's another means to identify graphically why there's a problem there. In this particular case, there's a different type of garbage bin that's not equipped with the RFID tag, and that's why that bin is not collected on the given garbage day. And this provides a view of the inside of the truck in case if there's something that's emptied into the truck that shouldn't be there, for instance, a propane tank, but the view of the truck doesn't provide much in terms of detail. To give you an idea of the success of this approach, compared to 2013, the amount of garbage sent to landfill was 50% less. And correspondingly, we had a huge increase in the amount of green residue and leaves that were diverted from landfill and sent to a composting center. So the overall result was a 12% reduction in the curbside collections, but there was a corresponding increase in the collections in our Eco Center at the Public Works Department. So the overall result was pretty stable, and there was simply better sorting going on by our residents. Most alarming and encouraging for us, in our very first year of implementation, the average collection for the entire city was 55%, meaning residents put out their bin on average 55% of the time, or almost once every 2 weeks, but this on a voluntary basis and not due to an imposed change in frequency by the city. In terms of performance, the amount of garbage produced per capita, at least as far as the island of Montreal is concerned, 181 kilograms versus 370 in 2013. This is the lowest on the agglomeration, within the agglomeration of Montreal. It's surely lower in other parts of Canada, but this is very noteworthy for Montreal. In terms of recycling, the recovery rate was 78% versus the target of 70% for the Quebec policy on waste management, and was deemed the highest rate on the island of Montreal. For organic matter, we managed to recover 66% of the organic matter versus the target of 60% for the Quebec policy of waste management. Again, the highest rate of the agglomeration of Montreal. And lastly, the overall recovery rate for all of our materials was 69% versus the target of 60% for Green Municipal Fund grants. Again, the highest rate for the agglomeration of Montreal. So this was all achieved in our first year of implementation. The steps towards implementation, we started with a pilot project where we did consult with the council, who were much more apt to consider a pilot project with no commitments to see what's best suited for our municipality. Surely our municipality had some things going for it, such as 94% single-family dwellings, which helped to make for a uniform delivery of service. The collection tender was then developed in concert with the existing tender formats that were out there. We did consult with experts to see how to best structure our tender to ensure that the efforts made by our community did reap benefits and economies of scale. The implementation phase, when we did just determine that the pilot project provided results that were encouraged and justified implementing this across all of the city, the communication campaign that was conducted door to door was absolutely essential in ensuring that individual residents were aware of the various features of the waste reduction strategy, but also addressed their individual concerns, which were not all the same, or even some misconceptions. In some cases, people thought the service was only available once per month. And lastly, during the smart collection campaign and rollout in 2016, there were some errors with respect to garbage bin assignments, but those were easily determined via the collection system. And it also ensured that we had an efficient billing system in place when it came time for billing our residents at the end of the year, and ensured that we could provide bulletproof information to our residents if they questioned their cost based on their usage. This implement period took roughly 2 to 3 years, and it remains to be seen how your council determines the potential for implementation and how fast you can ramp it up. So to close, the measurable and important sustainable development benefits to the city of Beaconsfield can be broken down as far as those that are environmental. We had a 51% reduction per capita in the amount of garbage sent to landfill. Now only 4 trucks are required to serve the city from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a given Thursday, and those trucks are equipped only with 1 person instead of 2 per truck originally. So this is a clear reduction in the amount of greenhouse gases produced as part of garbage collection alone. But it also brought about better sorting and valorization recovery of the materials that had a potential value other than garbage. As far as the economic benefits, the cost for garbage collection alone decreased by 42% compared to 2013. We paid roughly $530,000 for garbage collection in 2013, and it cost us $310,000 in 2016. This reduction in cost allow us to provide many more services to residents, such as the pickup of green residue, curbside for residents, as well as for bulky items. Also, crucially, in terms of reinforcing the efforts of residents as a whole 78% of residents paid less in 2016 based on their efforts to put out their bin less frequently versus the fixed cost for 2015. This was something that was unexpected, but clearly shows the value of providing a service based on usage where residents can benefit from their efforts. From a social standpoint, the system provides individual and collective control for waste management. It's also equitable, an equitable approach that inspires both the satisfaction and pride of residents. And ultimately, it's a flexible solution that allows everyone to become agents of change. Big words to say that you can do your part individually to help the city as a whole. Throw less, it's smart. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us. And I'm going to give a very brief presentation about the Climate Hub initiative, and then I'm going to pass it right over to questions. We have 3 that came in during the registration process, and we have others that will flow in, I'm sure, as I give this brief kind of recap of what this Climate Hub initiative is about. And then we're going to try to wrap up in about 7 or 8 minutes so that we don't go too far over our half-hour promised time. So thanks very much for joining us. We're starting these hubs across the country. If you're in one of the cities listed on the screen, we invite you to connect with us because there are folks in your city interested in getting a hub started. There are 8 already underway. 12 more will be onboarded between now and the end of the calendar year, pardon me. And the red dots, I realize this map might be a little bit confusing. The red dots are simply places in Canada that we've identified through an analysis as being kind of climate activism hotspots. So places where there's a lot going on the climate front. So the premise of the hubs is that local groups of citizens that are diverse get together and they help their city do the following: create a GHG emissions inventory, set a reductions target, develop a plan to achieve the target, including waste reduction and other really smart, intelligent policy solutions, eco-fiscal solutions that were addressed on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, implementing the plan, of course, and then monitoring and reporting the results, being transparent about it. We here at Climate Reality have developed a toolkit with a number of resources to equip citizens and encourage them along their path. We can't obviously, be involved deeply in every single city. We have a pretty small staff for that kind of thing, but we are here to share inspiring stories, and I'm really thankful for Andrew to have joined us today to do that. Finally, in about 6 months' time, we'll be doing our first round or beta round of benchmarking cities on urban planning metrics, transportation metrics, innovation, ecosystem metrics, developing a circular economy, building bylaws, etc. And if you'd like to be a part of that, again, please reach out to us. You can reach us at contact@climatehub.ca. So that said, I'm going to turn it over to questions. And how do I do this here? Wonderful. And we've got a number already posted. So Victoria from Saugeen Shores asks, very impressed with the results since the incentive seems very low, $50 per year difference between the 2 scenarios. What if you become zero waste? Would you still pay the fixed costs? So somebody who never ever puts they might own a garbage bin, but they've never, put it out at the side of the road.
The base cost, 150, 155, 160, as a function of the size of garbage bin selected, covers all waste management services. So it's not only for garbage, it's for all of our services, including our branch chipping, our distribution of compost. So if no one puts anything out, then they will pay the base fee alone. And it's also important, based on our analysis in Europe, where a similar structure has been used, that the base fee cover a minimum of 12 or some form of minimum of pickups to avoid having people put garbage in park bins, so as to avoid that 40 cents or 80 cents. So it was important for our city, where we were going from the second worst on the island of Montreal, to encourage a change of habit, but we are far from coming to consider zero waste. We focused on greater green residue collection in 2015. In 2016, we went to an incentive tariff for smart collection. When our residents are prepared to do more, such as composting in much greater numbers locally on their own property, and putting as little as possible into their green residue pickup, then we can look at incentivizing that practice by charging people who don't make an effort on their own property to send less to a composting facility. But we haven't come to the point where zero waste is an attainable goal. Our conversation with our residents are really focused on what we can do in a stepwise fashion.
Great, thanks so much. Got a question now from Peterborough. Alan asks, what's done with the organic waste, power from waste, compost, and who pays for the uniform bins? The standardized bins, I guess.
So the so-called smart bins, the cost for that was borne by the city. We had a choice either to provide brown bins to our residents or to provide smart bins. Because residents picked it was up to them to pick whether they wanted the small, medium, or large. Given the choice of a medium-sized brown bin for all residents or a small, medium, large based on people's choice, it ultimately came to approximately the same cost. So the city did buy those bins, but the cost for that was amortized over 5 years and rolled into the waste management tariff. So over time, residents are paying for that, but the initial outlay was made by the city. As far as composting is concerned, the green residue collection ensures that anything other than table scraps can be sent to a compost facility at an alternate site, but we want to encourage our residents to do as much as possible on their own property. As I had said in response to the first question, there is currently no incentive tariff to encourage residents to do more on their own property, but our offer of services addresses all but 8.
Oh, I think we had an issue with Andrew's connection. So maybe I'll give him 30 seconds or so to jump back on. And in the meantime, if anybody has any other questions that they'd like to post. Oh, I see a second one there. Sorry, just from Victoria to ask whether or not his slides will be available. And in fact, the slides will be available. If I wouldn't mind asking the following people just to clarify that their question through his presentation has been answered. Victoria's ROI question that was posed in the registration, Ray's question about recognizing certain kinds of food. Do you want further clarification on those questions? And if so, if you wouldn't mind just writing them into the Q&A area.
I'm back now.
Great. Glad to have you back with us. And I've just asked the folks that posed questions during the registration process to reiterate them now if they would still like those questions answered, or if your presentation didn't sufficiently cover them. The only other question was that while you were gone that we addressed was Victoria's with regards to your PDF presentation. And certainly that will be made available on climatehub.ca in the webinar gallery. So there'll be a link to it there.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I think that's just about it. So thank you very much, everybody. Oh dear, we have one more question. The full cost of this versus the lessening of future cost. I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. I'm interested to know what the full cost of this is versus the lessening of future costs. So perhaps around the ROI kind of payback period. I mean, it seems like it paid itself back.
The payback period was instantaneous.
Zero.
We were paying $530,000 for our garbage collection based on we were paying per ton sent to landfill, and the actual collection cost just for garbage was $310,000. So that's over $200,000 savings. So those $200,000 savings were used to provide other curbside services such as green residue collection, and bulky item collection. So the overall cost to the city actually decreased slightly, especially when you consider that we get money back from our government based on our environmental performance as well. So our environmental performance went up significantly, which increased our the monies sent by government to support green initiatives. So the way we package the message to our residents, the overall cost for all of our waste management services was relatively stable, but we provided many, many more services to our residents to opt to send things that have value to a place where they can be either recycled or composted, versus putting them in their garbage stream and sending them to.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And may I say emphatically, Andrew for mayor. Okay. All right. So thanks all for joining us, and hope to see you next time. The next presentation will be on the 9th of November at 2 p.m., Thursday, the 9th of November, with Victoria Serta from the Aboriginal First Nations area of Saugeen Shores, and she'll be addressing how best to interact with Aboriginal and Indigenous populations when working at the municipal level. So thank you so much all for joining us, and climatehub.ca, of course, is your place to find out about past webinars and future. So thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Bye-bye.